I'll call this meeting to order. This is the hearing on the nomination of Mary Beth Ogulewicz to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court. I'll start by reading the governor's letter. Dear counselors, I am pleased to nominate Mary Beth Ogulewicz to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court. I submit this nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I'm enclosing the nominee's resume for your convenience. At this time, anyone who wishes to testify at this hearing, please raise your right hand. I'll swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as it relates to the matter now in hearing before this honorable body. Thank you. We're going to start with Elizabeth Deneen, who is the director of the YMCA, Young Women's Christians Association, is it Hamden County? Welcome. For the record, I've known Attorney Deneen for, I hate to say how many years, it's close to maybe 40.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So at this time, I would welcome you and ask you to give your testimony on behalf of Mary Beth Ogulewicz.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, as Councilor Hurley has already told you, my name is Elizabeth Deneen. I am a former prosecutor in Hamden County for 27 years. After I left the DA's office, I was the chair of the Criminal Justice Department at Bay Path University. And then the last 6 years, I have been the CEO of the YWCA of Western Mass. While I was a prosecutor, I was the president-elect of the Hamden County Bar Association. And I have known Mary Beth for 31 years. I met Mary Beth when she came to the DA's office as a young prosecutor, and we immediately became very, very good friends. I had an opportunity to observe her as a prosecutor during my tenure at the DA's office, and I can tell you that Mary Beth was one of the best prosecutors I ever dealt with, ever had the privilege of working with. And it's not because of her win-loss record, it's because of her quest for justice. Mary Beth was well respected by every judge that she appeared before, every defense attorney that had an opportunity to oppose her ended up deeply respecting her. And Mary Beth was very well liked in the courts by the judges, by the probation officers, by the court officers, by the clerks. One thing I do distinctly remember about Mary Beth is that nobody in the DA's office was more prepared for her trials. Mary Beth was always open to get information, not only to convict somebody, but more importantly, to make sure that when she got a case, she was convicting the right person. She has the perfect temperament to be a judge. She is kind. She is smart. She is measured in her demeanor. She has great people skills. I also had an opportunity to interact with Mary Beth professionally when she interned at the YWCA of Western Mass. Mary Beth has a degree in social work, and during her last year of her social work degree, she came to the YWCA and worked in our Children Who Witness Violence program. And did an absolutely terrific job counseling children who had experienced domestic violence, sexual assault, or had witnessed it. I can tell you that I think she will be a terrific judge. I think that she is compassionate when need be, and she will be responsible in terms of her sentencing. I think that she is absolutely perfect for a district court position because of her experience in her lifetime. And also because she's been a lawyer and a social worker. So I think in district court, there's always an opportunity for a redemption in terms of somebody who's committed a crime. There's an opportunity for rehabilitation. And I think Mary Beth will work very closely with the probation department and defense attorneys to do that.
Thank you, Attorney Deneen. Any questions?
Thank you for, oh, I'm so sorry.
That was really heartfelt, you know, it's not that this is just a professional, I mean, it just flowed. So, so tell me, what impresses you out of all her attributes that you believe that she'll be a good judge?
Thank you for your compliment and thank you for the question. I think her an understanding. I have seen Mary Beth in many different situations through 31 years. And she's one of those people when you go to speak to about a problem or you ask for advice, she doesn't immediately respond. She's thoughtful. She thinks, she's measured, and she speaks the truth. And I also think that she cares deeply about people. I think that is evident by her pursuing a social work degree. And I think the social work degree will enable her to understand humans better.
Your personal side of it, besides the professional, means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excused. Next witness is Naomi Bledsoe of the Northwestern District Attorney's Office. She's the Juvenile Diversion Coordinator. Come forward, please.
Morning, esteemed counselors.
Good morning.
My name is Naomi Bledsoe. I am the Juvenile Diversion Program Specialist at the Northwestern District Attorney's Office and the Juvenile Administrator. With some previous experience working for the Franklin, Hampshire Juvenile Trial Court, and currently I am a candidate for a master's degree in criminal justice and homeland security. It is a privilege to be here today, to speak with you all, and to support the nomination of Attorney Mary Beth Ogulewicz. 1 year ago, I met Attorney Ogulewicz when she courageously stepped into the dual position of the Chief of the Elder Persons and Disabled Unit and Prosecutor in the Juvenile Justice Unit. Over the past year, I've witnessed the positive impact she has made in our office, the trial court, and with our community partners. And I have no doubt that she will continue to do that from the bench. She has managed a very heavy and serious caseload with compassion and good judgment. The juvenile court is a court of rehabilitation. Among the important interests a prosecutor must consider are the interests of the victim, public safety, and the best interests of the youth. I have seen Attorney Ogulewicz carefully consider and advocate for these interests. He strives to tailor every recommendation to achieve a just result. Attorney Ogulewicz is not afraid to ask difficult questions, get to the root of an issue, and fight for what is fair and just. She takes it upon herself to try to understand how systemic racism, mental health, substance use disorders, and poverty may affect those who are court involved. The Commonwealth would greatly benefit having Attorney Ogulewicz as a judge. She is compassionate, dedicated, and an asset to our community. Her background in social work and significant legal experience will serve her well as a district court judge. Thank you for allowing me to testify today, and thank you, Mary Beth, for being an incredible role model and colleague.
And she's also in Superior Court in the DA's office from
The Northwestern DA.
Northwestern DA's office. Yep. Okay, and where were you born, Mary Beth?
Holyoke, Massachusetts.
Nope. Holyoke.
To the top.
In any event, any questions? Questions of this witness? Hearing none, thank you very much. At this time, we'll hear from Thomas Wilson Esquire of Dunn and Wilson of Holyoke, Mass, and also previous president of the Bar Association for Hamden County.
Thank you. I have known Mary Beth Ogulewicz for 36 years. We went to law school together. We socialized together. And then when I became a bar advocate, She was the prosecuting attorney in Holyoke District Court. She worked for the DA's office. She was, as was said, very well prepared, very compassionate, and she could be tough. I mean, she has all these kids. She could be tough. And she was but she was fair. You never, if she gave you a harsh sentence, there was a reason for that. If she gave you some sort of break, there was a reason for that. She looked at everybody, the victims, the witnesses. She was very, very compassionate, even with the court staff, the probation department, the court officers, the clerk's office, everybody. In fact, it was a sad day in Holyoke when she left. But she was a great prosecutor. She could do a trial. She could cross-examination. She could be tough, as I said. If you look at her experience, she has a myriad of experience, which now in a district court, I think would be tremendous. She has her mental health abilities. She's done with children who have been in tough situations. She is, the other thing is that Mary Beth is very able to look at a person and understand them and listen to their story, compassionate. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody who does something foul will not go to jail and have a harsh sentence. That's absolutely true. But if there's a need for compassion or a need for being tough, she'll do either side. And she'll look at the case, the people and everybody else, and people open up to Mary Beth. They always have. I mean, people just talk to her and she understands and she's empathetic. But as far as being a judge, I think now with the way the district court is not, there's more now than just guilty, not guilty criminal. You have mental health hearings, you have all this other things now, and I don't practice much in district court, but I have sat recently and I noticed that it's not what it used to be when I first started, and 36 years ago when we first started. But I think Mary Beth Ogulewicz will be one of the finest judges. She will be hearing to her staff. She will be very, 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 very competent in her decisions, should she write them. She knows the law, she writes very well. And I really think that she will be a great addition to the Hampden County District Court, whichever district court she would wind up in. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Counselor Jubenville?
Have you ever seen her lose her temper?
Me? No, I've never seen her lose her temper. I have never seen her lose her
I've
temper.
been waiting all my life to find a woman that didn't lose her temper. And it took me to come to the council to find a whole bunch of them.
You didn't ask me if I've ever lost it at her, but no, she probably does have a temper, but she's never lost it at me. I mean, she's got her husband here.
I won't ask you.
But it's just, she's a very calm person in situations. I've seen her get upset in trials with things, but not lose a temper.
And saw Aaron doing, is he still practicing?
No, he's retired.
You see him give my best.
I certainly will.
Right cat here for a lot of years. I can remember shouting at him
Oh, yeah.
in court, not because I was yelling at him, because he couldn't hear what I was saying. Great attorney.
Yes.
Counselor Annie?
Thank you. Could you tell us what particular area in law that she excels?
My opinion that I've really only seen her in the criminal end of law, so I can't comment on anything like that. I know that she's done a lot of work with elderly and with mental health issues, but personally, I've seen her just be a prosecutor. And she was a very, very good prosecutor. She was always very organized. And, that's important, and I didn't bring that out yet. She's very, very organized. And she would have a pad, and she would be able to go down the witnesses, and she would have what the elements were and do it. I was always impressed by that. She would have to do it right like that. She was always organized and was very, she would ask the questions directly. And I had seen her once, and I can't remember the reason, but going into somebody's face in a witness stand. But she must have really maybe she didn't lose her temper, but she got upset because that person was obviously not.
Lying.
you have a long time that you have been a personal friend, and now you've been professionally, you can talk on both, so I appreciate that, your testimony today.
Thank you very much. Is that any
Any other questions? Hearing none, I would declare, is there anyone else here who wishes to speak in favor? All right, no one? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition? Hearing none, I declare that portion of the hearing over with. And at this time, Attorney Nogalovitz, I would invite you to give your opening statement.
Welcome, and thank you very much, Councilor Hurley. I'd like to begin just by introducing the individuals who are here to support me beyond my witnesses. So I have my family with me, and my daughter Catherine from New York City, my husband Robert Sacco, Ethan Sacco, our son, who's a rising senior in college, and our son Dante Sacco, who arrived here from Cleveland, Ohio. And watching and tuning in, hopefully, is our daughter in Madison, Wisconsin. Along with that, I have my brother Peter and his partner Julia Lynch. And then I also have a wonderful colleague, Berenice Santana. And Berenice was a student of mine in undergraduate. Both Attorney Deneen and I had her as a student. She went to law school. She is now a prosecutor along with me and my colleague in the district attorney's office for the Northwestern District. And I wanted her here today because I hope someday that she will be here. And I wanted her to have something in her vision. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So it is an honor and a tremendous privilege to be with all of you today. I'd like to begin by thanking Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito for nominating me for appointment as an Associate Justice to the District Court. I am humbled by my nomination, quite frankly. Through the process of application and judicial vetting, I have met some remarkable individuals who have generously shared their expertise, whom I would like to thank. First, Chief Legal Counsel Robert Ross for some thought-provoking interview questions. Executive Director of the Judicial Nominating Commission, Lauren Green Petrino, for her equanimity and also eloquence. Valerie McCarthy, who graciously accepted my in-hand delivery of 15 copies of my application. Emily Gauthier for her detailed preparatory guidance, and Katie Babin for responding to my hand-wringing questions. I'd also like to thank the Judicial Nominating Commission and the Joint Bar Committee. And thank you, counselors, for your time and your consideration prior to this hearing and the opportunities we've had to meet and discuss issues that were of relevance for you regarding my candidacy. And also special thanks to you, Counselor Hurley, for your guidance and your support throughout this process. I'd also like to thank my family for their enduring support each step of the way, my friends and colleagues who are here with me today, and who made the journey from Western Mass on my behalf to speak. Lastly, I'd also like to thank the courthouse staff in Franklin, Hampshire, and Hampden counties, including the probation office, the clerk's office, and the court officers and security. As you all well know, the process of the administration of justice depends on their collective valued contributions. I thank the staffs of the Hampden and Northwestern District Attorney offices and members of the defense bar who do remarkable work every day. Their zealous advocacy at the bar, lifelong professional friendships, and encouragement through this process have all been gratifying. So who am I? Well, I grew up, first of all, in East Hampton, Massachusetts, which is a small town in Western Massachusetts. My grandparents immigrated from Poland and worked in factories and on the railroad. Hard work, strength of character, and hope dominated their lives and were passed on to me as important values. Both my parents have passed, but my presence here today is a testament to their sacrifice, love, and a belief that they imbued in me that anything is possible if you work hard and care for others. My father left school after the 8th grade to become financially responsible for his family. He dutifully fulfilled the role of the provider for the rest of his life, working 3 jobs while myself and my siblings were growing up and through college. He sold shoes and performed kitchen work and at the log cabin restaurant on weekends and nights, and all of that after working all day in a paper mill in Holyoke. He sorted the complexity of the world with optimism, never seeing barriers. If he were here today, he would simply say, "Of course you could be a judge, Mary Beth. No doubt. No worries." My parents were an indelible part of our family life and helped raise our beautiful 4 children. My mother was a brilliant force of nature, if you had met her. When she began school, she only spoke Polish. So when the bell rang for recess, she left school. She didn't know what was happening. She didn't understand that there was even recess. She repeatedly shared that story over her lifetime with myself and my siblings. My brother Peter, who's here today, he knows that story. Because it was important that she reflect to us that we had a responsibility to look for and care for others who needed help. And that was her message to us. Though not able to attend college in her late 60s, she enrolled at Holyoke Community College, studying every semester up until her death in her 70s. She was a role model for me of lifelong learning. She made a living as a nurse and was exceptional, with prodigious energy and ability to inspire others and pride in her immaculate care of her patients at the Soldiers Home, Holyoke Hospital, and Providence Hospital. If you knew my mother, you knew the power of fierce love to evoke change and bring out the best in people. And I bear the traits of my parents, I hope. Understanding that one of the most significant factors for resilience is a caring adult, my family that I have with me today has tried to emulate the same care and generosity of my parents, and we have accepted teens into our home who needed support after a family rupture. They needed a home after release from commitment to DYS, help with recovery from substance use addiction, and a home for refugees. If appointed, I would bring that same compassion and understanding, a commitment to learning, and working to assure equitable outcomes for marginalized populations and those who have been historically excluded. With my modest background at age 12, I declared to my best friend that I was going to be a lawyer. My earliest advocacy was in third grade, I believe, where I wrote a letter of protest because only the highest reading group was allowed to do a class play. And though I was in that group, I felt the diminishment of my fellow classmates who weren't allowed. And so I was disciplined at school for that action, and I was encouraged at home. And that sort of set the rest of the course. I attended Boston College, graduating in 1985. The distinguishing features of my college education that remain with me today are the commitment to developing competence in order to do justice in the world, compassion, and to be of service. I learned the value of striving for excellence. Ever to excel is the motto of Boston College. I attended Western New England College School of Law, graduating cum laude in 1989. Upon graduation, I served as a law clerk to the pool of justices in the Superior Court in Hampden County. I was fortunate to work with and be mentored by judges who displayed moderation, humility, thoughtful, nuanced consideration of legal issues, and the impact of their decisions, as well as conversational styles of interacting with litigants. It was then that I decided to engage in trial work for my career and the distant notion that I might be able to make a difference as a judge. I was hired as an assistant district attorney in Hampden County in 1991, and I'm very proud of my public service. In that role, I learned not only how to master trial work and support the voice of victims, but I was determined to be mindful holding the power of prosecution with equity. I thrive in the setting of a busy district court. I enjoy working with people from all walks of life and building relational trust with victims from diverse cultures under severe time constraints. I worked in the 5 district courts of Hampden County, eventually serving as the head of the Holyoke District Court. I was also appointed the head of the juvenile court and was eventually promoted to Superior Court in prosecuting homicides, sexual assaults, and child abuse cases. I have investigated and tried hundreds of cases over my career. I also served for 2 years as a prosecutor in the U.S. territory of Guam, where among my accomplishments, I worked with the local community to create protocols for the investigation and prosecution of domestic violence. By 2008, however, I found myself prosecuting the 3rd generation of some families. And I was troubled by that fact, and it was frustrating that my limited legal knowledge did not equip me to better handle and resolve those issues that brought persons repeatedly before the court. I felt I was missing something. I left prosecution. I taught law courses at a number of local colleges and pursued a master's degree in social work to add to my knowledge. And I graduated in 2018 from Westfield State University with a master's degree in social work. I obtained my clinical social work license, and I am a licensed clinical social worker as well as an attorney. My training includes counseling young adults and members of the community at UMass for trauma, depression, and substance use. I have performed biopsychosocial assessments and developed treatment plans. I also perform clinical work at the YWCA in Springfield, counseling children and their families in the Children Who Witness Violence program, utilizing trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. Given the complex intertwined issues of addiction and mental health that are present in many of the cases in district court, I believe my social work background is a valuable tool for understanding the impact of trauma, individual pathways to treatment and recovery, and the need for integrated care. I use the skills I gained to practice mental health law, engaging in civil practice, including at Morrison Mahoney, where I represented healthcare systems and behavioral health hospitals. I had trials and hearings before the district court, superior court, and probate court, litigating issues of decisional capacity, end of life care, mental health care, psychiatric medication and treatment, and addiction treatment. I have committed time and professionally contributed to anti-racism work, which has been important to me. Working in the town of Amherst, I was the lead staff person assigned to the Alternate Community Responder Program, which was a program researched and promulgated by members of the Black, Indigenous, and persons of color community. There, I learned to listen with as much passion as I wanted to be heard, particularly regarding the impact of systemic racism. In support of that group's pioneering work, I drafted an implementation plan for a grant that secured one of the few DPH grants of $500,000 to fund the launching of that alternate responder program, which will launch within the next month. I served on the court equity team, which developed training for staff and elected officials regarding racial equity, diversity, inclusion, and social justice. I also served as a municipal representative on the statewide Opioid Recovery and Remediation Fund Advisory Council, which was tasked with developing a matrix for awarding funds for opioid treatment across a spectrum of services from education and prevention, risk minimization, and recovery and treatment. I presently work in the Northwestern District Attorney's Office as the Chief of the Elder and Persons with Disabilities Unit, where I investigate cases of abuse and exploitation of elders and persons with disabilities in the District and Superior Court. And I am the Juvenile Justice Prosecutor assigned to Franklin County. Our youth are facing epic rates of behavioral health issues due to unprecedented challenges and missing key developmental milestones during COVID. Those affected youth will soon be emerging adults. And my understanding of adolescent development, brain development, and familiarity with mental health and substance will be useful and helpful to the district court. I believe I can contribute something of merit to the district court. My dual mastery of law and social work and strengths of tenacious problem solving, ingenuity, and a willingness to learn new ways of understanding. I have worked hard to broaden my repertoire of tools and perspective and to build a robust toolbox to meet the evolving demands of the district court and the persons who appear before the court. And I am pleased to respond to any questions you have about my nomination. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. I would note that it is almost 10 minutes of 12. We usually break for the assembly. Keep going? Okay. So we'll keep going until otherwise told. Keeping with the rules, I'm going to start with Councilor Jubenville.
Thank you. You've been a prosecutor all your career, about, right?
Yeah, a good portion of it, yes.
A lot of,
Yes. Yep.
how do we know you won't be a prosecutor on the bench?
Because I have a reputation of fairness, because I have the ability, even as a prosecutor, to make charging decisions, to decide not to charge a case. I have null-prost cases that have come before me when the evidence did not support those elements. And I think that if you look at the arc of my career, I have tried to garner skill, reflect fairness, wise judgment, and the ability to look at cases and people from multiple perspectives, not just with a prosecutorial lens. And I think my work since returning to the district attorney's office reflects that.
Well, we asked that question just about everybody that comes here that has a lot of prosecutorial background. And they all say what you just said in some form. But a lot of them don't follow through after they get the robe. It seems to change them. You're going to be changed by the robe?
Yeah, I don't think I would be changed by the robe. If anything, I am humbled by that robe. And I have a sworn oath to fidelity to the law. And that includes looking at each case on an individual basis, looking at factors that are also mitigating circumstances. And I think that my background as a social worker, additionally, has highlighted that ability to understand that people end up with legal issues and legal problems, not in isolation. But a lot of times there are social factors that contribute to that. Those factors are important to take into account. So I can only give you a personal assurance. I'm sure that every time you make this decision, there is a certain amount of reflection that you have to take. And I would suggest if you look at the arc of my body of work and the fact that I left prosecution in order to gain more perspective to understand why people were coming before me repeatedly, and that had a desire not to simply incarcerate and do more work without understanding more. I would suggest that that would be.
Do you think district court judges, their duty is to follow the law?
I think it is to interpret and apply the law.
Have been before a lot of district court judges?
Yes,
Had any jury waived trials in front of them?
I have had a number of jury waived trials.
What do you think a defense lawyer uses to be able to make the decision whether or not he or she jury waives?
The reputation of the judge. If a judge is known as a Commonwealth judge or a fair judge.
You would agree with me that there are some judges in the Commonwealth that have never said not guilty in their entire career?
I would agree that there are some who have that reputation, yes.
And so let's say 2 years from now, after you're on the bench, I'm out in Western Mass and I say to some lawyer that's been around, this judge that we confirmed, I go jury waive, he or she gonna say, no way, or yeah, she's fair?
They're going to say, go jury waived. One of the best questions that I was asked during this process was by Chief Legal Counsel Ross. And he asked me, a senior attorney is preparing a junior associate to go before you. And when they hear your name, what will they think? And when they hear my name, the first thing that I want them to associate is fairness, that you will get a fair trial, that you will get a fair hearing, have the capacity to listen to the full exposition of the evidence and to take the facts and circumstances into my consideration, and knowing full well that my responsibility is that the presumption of innocence stays with the defendant unless and until the Commonwealth proves their case beyond a reasonable doubt.
Are you gonna have the courage if you so find from the evidence to say not guilty?
It's not even the courage, it's the responsibility to do so.
I think it's courage, because I think a lot of judges don't have that courage. Especially if it's sort of a case that is somewhat publicity-wise, it's getting some attention. I think some of them don't have the courage to say that. I don't know why, they can't be fired for it, right?
Yep.
You could say not guilty in every case you have from now until the time you retire, and you can't be fired. Somebody might transfer you to another court, but that's the best they can do.
I would suggest, I certainly have the courage to find somebody not guilty, if that's what the evidence
Oh.
proves.
So you know judges, and I know them in Western Mass, that I would never jury waive in front. So you know,
Yes.
to me, that's about the saddest legacy a judge could have. Somebody that you would never jury waive in front of. That means they didn't trust you, that you didn't prove yourself to be trustable to decide a case fairly. What an awful legacy to leave the bench with. You were one of those people. So I don't want that to be your legacy.
It will not be.
You've been in jury way trials where the case is on for trial, and the lawyer makes a decision that day to jury waive, right? There is a court in this Commonwealth that I heard does not allow people to do that. Down in New Bedford, judges there, if you show up for trial, so I show up for trial, it's marked for trial, and I discuss the case with the DA, and we come to a resolution. And we say to the judge, we're here, we're gonna plead. The answer is no, you cannot plead. You ever heard of that?
No, I have not.
You think it's legal?
I would suggest that it's certainly imprudent and in violation of, I know, to be a defendant's right to elect whether they want to have a jury trial, jury waive trial.
So a judge did that years ago in Marlborough Court, I remember. He had, because of that, he had one of the worst reputations any judge I've ever heard about. And I said to myself, why would you want to do a policy that is probably, if not illegal, certainly not fair, denying a defendant a right to plead? But you've made yourself scorned by everybody on the bar, probably DAs and defense lawyers, because let's face it, you're a judge. I look at it basic. If I'm a judge, I want somebody to plead. It's my day. I don't have to do a jury trial. Get rid of the case. I'm sure both parties go, why would you do that? Why would you stop us from doing it? So I would hope you wouldn't do that.
I would never do that. And I also think that there's another aspect to that, that if an individual is willing to accept accountability, that's an important step for them as well. So I
Oh, there
wouldn't
was
ask
a,
somebody.
yeah, there was a judge out in Western Mass, he's still there, who, in my view, from what I know, and others, you wouldn't really want a jury waive in front of him. But in this particular case, lawyers came and the lawyer for the defense said, Judge, what's on for trial? I want a jury waive. And the judge said, no. You've got to tell me some reason, and a good reason, why you're going to jury waive it. He said, I don't like that. The defendant has an absolute right to waive the jury whenever he or she sees fit. The judge said, no, you cannot do that. And he made him have a jury trial. Appealed up to the Supreme Court.
That's what
The case?
no, but that's what I was thinking that would be the route.
And it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court made a finding that judge is completely wrong. That any defendant has a right up until the time that the jury starts getting picked. And the other exception is if there's co-defendants, you both have to jury waive it. Or you both have to jury trial. So you can't split it. But other than that, the defense lawyer has no obligation to tell a judge why he's jury waiving it. Just the simple fact that the defendant asked for it, that's it. We agree with that decision in the Supreme Court?
Yes.
The other issue is that sometimes with these jury and jury waive trials, if a judge makes a defendant, let's say at a pretrial or a C&E date, and he asks, okay, you're gonna ask for a trial, I'm gonna have you waive your right to a trial by jury today if you're gonna do that. And if it's been done to me, I started putting it down for trial, and the judge said, what's it gonna be? Jury waived. I said, well, first of all, I can't make that decision today. And he said, well, I want you to make it. You gotta make it. I said, I can't. Do you think I have to make that decision on that date?
No, not at the pretrial date, no. No.
You know it.
You haven't in all likelihood had the opportunity to fully investigate your case and prepare it for trial, which develops over time, and there may be evidence that would indicate the day of trial that you may choose to elect a jury waived trial versus a jury trial for reasons of your investigation and preparation.
You wouldn't make any lawyer make that decision before knowing who the judge was.
And furthermore, before knowing more fully their case.
I can know my case real fully at the pre-trial, but I'm not gonna be roped into giving up my defendant's right to a jury waived trial or a jury trial that day, because I don't know who's sitting. Right?
Right.
You know that 7 Supreme Judicial Court justices sat in that chair where you're sitting? And every one of them said to us that it would be malpractice, it would be ineffective assistance of counsel to give up that right before you knew what judge was sitting. So I'd ask you not to make anybody give that right up until they knew what judge was sitting. Won't want them to commit malpractice.
Absolutely.
Then what has happened? Well, I won't get to that, but I think you talk very well, and I think you're very professional, and your witnesses were very good. I want to tell you one story. After we spoke, my very close friend in Western Mass in Holyoke, married to my very good friend, was a former nurse.
2-minute warning.
Huh?
2-minute warning.
And, excuse me. And so I asked her if she knew you. And she said she didn't know you, but she knew your mother because she worked for your mother at the Soldiers' Home in Holyoke. He said if your mother had been working there, that tragedy happened. He said, first of all, it wouldn't have happened. That your mother would leave no door closed on behalf of patients. And the administrators were in fear of your mother.
It would be true.
You're up. She said she was hard with us, but we loved her because if anybody picked on us, that was it. She'd storm down the hall and open the door and scream at anybody. Leave her nurses alone. So she said that tragedy, in her opinion, would have never been allowed to happen.
I have said the same thing.
So I tell you that stuff.
Thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you. Counselor Devaney.
I'm going to preface my remarks, but first I want to say that I'm smiling today. I got a twofer. I'm so thrilled that you went for this position and you earned it the old-fashioned way, okay?
Thank you.
By being qualified, okay, not political. First of all, I met at length with you, as I do all nominees. And for the record, I know your position on abortion, okay? But I want it known here that in my 23 years at hearings, I have only asked nominees who are being nominated for the Supreme Judicial Court their position, because that's where it applies. The Supreme Judicial Court is the only court in Massachusetts that hears abortion and votes on abortion laws, and our legislators. In fact, today, they're taking up to give more access to abortions in the legislature. I have to say this because it's been misrepresented by someone out there and has gone viral. And I want to say 5 counselors voted for an outstanding woman to go to the Superior Court. She had the qualifications, she had everything. I'm not going to go into it, but she was noted in the legal community. She has been many awards, a super lawyer, top women in law, and all of that. And it was very well said. Counselor Juveville, Counselor Iannella, Counselor Ferrara, and we have a former judge. and they all, and Councilor Ferrara talked about it, that it doesn't apply, so it's not relevant what position it is, because it's only the Supreme Judicial Court. Well, we voted. I want to make that clear, because, like I said, I privately will ask people, but I don't bring it forward, only if you're going to the Supreme Judicial Court. That's the court that votes on abortion laws. So having said that, you have an amazing resume. I can't, and I'm so glad you have so much criminal. We need that. We need that in the district court. The thing is that I was amazed at was that you went to Guam. I mean, all this, and I want to hear that, but I want to go back to how do you believe being a social worker will make you a better judge? Tell me about all that experience.
I think it's a reflection of competence and compassion. And the competencies of a social worker are really in line and aligned with the way that we evaluate cases as lawyers. So it gives me a particular lens and perspective around individuals, their background, an understanding of the impact of trauma. If you read the sentencing guidelines for judges, there is an admonishment that we should be considering social science research and taking that into consideration. So my understanding of trauma, of substance use and mental illness is directly relevant to the mitigating circumstances that bring somebody before me. I think it becomes relevant in issues as mundane as a violation of probation, so that you can look at an individual who might be in recovery and who has relapsed, and looking at those questions around how long have they maintained their recovery? Is it lengthening over the period of time? And what were the effective supports that were in place that supported their sobriety, and how can we build more of that? So rather than a reflexive response to violate somebody and incarcerate them, I think I have a more nuanced consideration around that and critical thinking in the way that that would happen. I also believe it would be reflected in my decision-making with regard to sentencing and the ability to tailor sentences that really were individualized. And I'm very well informed around pathways for recovery and treatment, and also mitigating circumstances and mitigating risk of harm for individuals. So I think it's a broad perspective, and it's one that is, I think, particularly tailored to the district court, where we see that upwards to 70 to 80% of the individuals who come before us have co-occurring mental health diagnoses and also substance use disorder.
Well, I have to say, you to me the whole person, because compassion is the one thing I look for. And you're the first one in 23 years when you're asked what are the 4 qualities to be a judge. You said humility, the first one. I've never seen humility ever put in a resume before. I was really amazed by that. But, you know, you have done things outside the court that has touched my heart. I mean, you brought people, young people, into your home from another country, and they've got a high school diploma, all of that you know, adds to it, that I'm voting for the whole person. I like when you talked about how much you learned as a law clerk. I couldn't believe all the things that you had to do with the judges. Now, the one thing that really bothers me with the JNC questionnaire, the rest of the story. And I'm saying, well, what happened? Okay, you've got some really crazy, weird things that you've gone through. Well, one of them, before I say that one, a juvenile accused of sexual assault with history as a victim, mental health evaluation, identified emergent psychiatric issues, and so forth. All right, so you work with counsel to secure treatment, and the outcome will be determined. What's the rest of the story? What was the outcome?
That the individual is currently under psychiatric treatment. And what we typically do within the context of a juvenile court is we secure those supportive services with agreement with the defense counsel. And then we have an opportunity for them to demonstrate the rehabilitation is effective. And when that has run its course of treatment, so it could be anywhere from 6 months to a year, then we would evaluate what would be the sentence. So that we're making sure that we are not tagging somebody with a conviction as a juvenile that would follow them lifelong.
Because we're timed, because I asked too many questions, they've timed us now. This one, I can't even talk about it. A juvenile accused of sexual activity with a dog. Now, how?
Excuse me.
What is the result?
Lieutenant Governor is,
Pardon me?
the Lieutenant Governor is coming in.
Oh, she's coming in. Can I continue afterwards then?
Yes, you have 8 minutes left.
And what?
8 minutes left.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll talk fast. So something like that, I mean, that's not the usual case. How do you deal with that?
I'm trying to, yes, we're gonna stop. It's okay. It's okay.
Stay.